hope that you are all really well and have had a wonderful, wonderful week. I am filming at home this week, which is unusual. I don't think I have filmed a vlog here for over a year since I got the shop. Also slightly less than a year, but yeah, maybe about 9 months or so, which is quite fitting because today's vlog is going to be about Sewsfaction, our first year, our journey, and some of the highs and lows, and maybe throw in a few things that I've learned as well. I've been asked a lot to do this vlog. Almost since the beginning of setting up the business, people have been asking, but your first year is so crazy and so hectic and confusing that there was never a right time, and it's actually been 6 or 7 weeks since our first birthday and I still haven't had time to do it, so I thought I would set aside some time to chat to you guys. I feel quite nervous. I've already recorded a couple of times last night at the shop, but I had loads of technical problems and I found it really difficult because I don't want to ramble on. When you're really passionate about something, you can end up talking in great length about things that you find really interesting but other people might not, and also it's quite exposing. I want to be really honest with you guys. A lot of you have followed and supported since before I even had the business, and lots of you have come along since the business started and have been really loyal and supportive, and I think I really want to do this vlog because I want to be, you know, honest and open with you guys, and thank you for all of your support. And I also want to do it because I want to look back in a couple of years and see where I was 1 year in. So I'm going to kind of talk through a brief timeline. It's going to be very hard to condense 18 months of you know, hard work and very, very wide range of things that have happened in that 18 months. But just to give you an understanding of kind of what happened when, and then talk through some of my highs and my lows and the challenges and some of the things that I've learned. So hopefully you'll find it interesting, and I apologise in advance if it's a little bit longer than some of my other vlogs, but as I say, I don't know what it's going to come out like yet, so I hope you enjoy it. So timeline wise, so for those of you that don't know, I started, Sewsfaction launched in April 2017, so April last year. However, it started a bit before that. So my background is in sales and recruitment management. I was working as a recruitment manager at the time that Sewsfaction launched. It launched online as a website only, but also with classes locally. So from kind of late 2016, I'd been teaching friends and friends of friends to sew. I've talked about my sewing journey and how I got into sewing in another video, so I won't go into that now, but I will link it if any of you fancy a watch. In fact, I'll link it in the box down below. But I was teaching friends. I really loved that. I loved kind of spreading the joy of sewing and letting other people know how amazing it was to sew your own clothes, and I really loved seeing people kind of enjoy sewing and learn how to do it. So that was something that I knew I wanted to do more of, but I was doing that kind of evenings and weekends in between doing my full-time job, and fabric was my other massive passion and still continues to be, and I had an idea that I really wanted to create a business where I could bring together those kind of fabrics that I loved, so really high quality, beautiful, yeah, amazing prints, unusual things that you don't necessarily see everywhere, and bring them all under one roof. So I had that kind of seed of an idea, and my sister Eloise is a web designer, so she's now a freelance web designer, but at the time she was working full-time for a web agency as well, and I talked to her about it, and she was really happy to work with me and help me on the website, and Sewsfaction wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her, because I couldn't have done it without her. So we worked really closely for months and months on the website, getting the website right was a huge thing. I always knew when I started, or even before I started the business, but when the ideas were growing in my head, that I wanted Satisfaction to be a kind of scalable business. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I didn't know how quickly it was going to grow or what it was going to become, but I knew that I wanted, when we launched, for there to be quite a lot of choice, for there to be quite a lot of different fabrics on there and different products, and I think when we launched there were something like 65-70 fabrics plus patterns and sewing motions and things, so it was a sizable investment on my part. I put all of my savings into it, and my husband helped me as well, so I very luckily didn't have to take out a business loan to start the business, but the cupboards were definitely bare. There were no savings, there was no holidays. I was working full time though, so I did have the kind of thought in the back of my head that if it didn't work, yes, I would have lost my savings, but at least I would have known that I'd done it. So there was lots of working on the website, going backwards and forwards between me and my sister. I had a really clear idea of how I wanted things to look. I wanted it to have a really fresh, modern feel. I wanted there to be lots of white space and for the fabrics to be the main focus. One of my big bugbears about buying online is the lack of good quality, good size photos of the fabric in different scales and different shapes, and that was something that I was really adamant we had to get across. And so now if you look at the website, you'll see we always try and make sure our pictures are as clear as possible, and that there are a few the fabric flat, the fabric close up, the fabric scrunched up, so that you can really get a feel for it. So as you can imagine, photographing all of the first wave of fabric in one hit and all of the patterns and everything else was taking an awful lot of time. Eloise was still building the back end of the website, but we managed to launch in April 2017, so we went live on 17th of April, and then the shop came later, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we kind of go through. But the idea for the shop, I never intended to open a retail space, but very quickly, within a couple of months of the business launching, I knew that I needed to make a decision whether I wanted to keep doing it and make it my full-time career, because I couldn't continue to still be cutting orders at 2 o'clock in the morning and then doing a 3-hour commute every day, leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning and going into quite a full-on stressful job. So something had to give. So I made the decision that Satisfaction would become my full-time career, and that was a big leap, and I get asked a lot how I made that decision, and to be honest, it was hard in one sense, because I have always worked. I've worked since I was 16. I've always had an income coming in, and I was in a good job with a nice salary and a company car and benefits and things, so it was quite hard to make the decision to walk away from that. Hello. Oh look who hasn't made an appearance in one of the vlogs for a really long time, but because I'm at home. Hello baby. If you haven't seen it before, this is Tallulah. This is my little Persian pretty cat, and don't be fooled, she looks really cute, but in a minute she'll start scratching me. Anyway, I'll keep her on my lap, so she'll probably stay out of shot. Yeah, I had to make a decision, and I talked it through with my husband and my family, and they were really supportive. I think they probably all thought I was insane, but they were really supportive, and I knew that I didn't want to regret not giving it a go. I didn't want to look back in a couple of years and think, I wish I had done that. So I made the decision to make Satisfaction my full-time job, and I handed in my notice at my job in June, and that coincided with taking on premises, because I knew as well that it wasn't sustainable to continue hiring out studio spaces and taking all of my equipment and things to the studio, and also we had outgrown the spare room by a mile, and it was very, very hard climbing over all of the fabrics to cut orders and things. So yeah, I needed a premises, but I didn't intend to kind of open a shop, as it were. I was looking for somewhere where I could continue to teach the classes, but I could also cut the orders and have space to store the fabric. So we looked at a few different spaces, and then when I came across Home Grange, which is a beautiful, Home Grange Craft Village where we are, it's a beautiful sort of barn style setup. There's lots of little barn style shops in a kind of villagey style setup. It's 22 independent, unique businesses, a lot of them with a focus on crafts. It's a lovely little cafe, and as you're right there, as soon as I saw it, I knew that that's where I wanted Satisfaction to be. So there was a bit backwards and forwards over the lease, and I made the commitment and signed the lease, sent it back through the solicitors, and got it all signed off on the Friday, and then I handed in my notice for my full-time job on the Monday, and then I worked my 4 weeks notice and took the keys, again finished my full-time job on the Friday and picked up the keys for the shop on the Tuesday. And I remember that day really, really well. I'll pop a picture of it up here. It was the 17th of July, so exactly 3 months after the website had launched. The shop was obviously completely empty. I was wearing my swan dress, which I absolutely love, and every time I look at that now I remember that day. And yeah, picked up the keys and remember feeling absolutely elated and also absolutely petrified, and the shop opened 3 weeks later. So for 3 weeks I had to basically build a shop. It was a completely empty space, as you see from that photo, and my husband works full-time, most of my friends work full-time or they have small children, so there wasn't really anyone around to help me. So if you followed me on Instagram back at that time, you'll remember there was lots of painting and DIY and putting furniture together and sanding things, and Susie was around for the first couple of days after I picked up the keys. She helped me bring all of the fabrics over, so we had to do multiple trips filling the cars with all of the fabric and take it over to the shop, and as we're upstairs carrying it all up the stairs, and yeah, we were pretty puffed out after that. But then she had a 3-week holiday to Florida already booked, so she wasn't around after the first couple of days. So yeah, for 3 weeks it was kind of just me, just building this shop and creating a space for the studio and getting all of the machines organised and trying to keep track of everything that was going on and get the shop opened as quickly as possible. And the shop opened on Monday the 7th of August 2017. So yeah, everything went and still continues to go at 100 miles an hour. Everything has been very, very quick, which brings its own you know, happy elated moments, but also its own challenges. Then we had crazy 3 months. I was on my own in the shop, so I was teaching the classes, running the shop, running the business, packing the orders, etc., until we took on our first member of staff in the October. I hadn't kind of made a plan as to when I was going to take on any staff, and I wasn't intending to do it that side of Christmas. I thought if I could just carry on by myself until the new year, and then I would kind of feel a bit more comfortable about taking someone on. But it got to a point where I worked myself literally into the ground, and the reason I decided to recruit that day was because I was due to be teaching a class on a Saturday, and my 20-minute journey into the shop, there was an accident on the way there, and it took me about 2 hours, and I had to sit in the car and phone all of the people that were due to come onto the class, who were all absolutely lovely, and let them know that I was going to have to postpone. And I remember sitting in the car and crying because I just felt really alone. I knew at that point that I couldn't continue to do everything by myself. When I come on to my kind of key learnings, that is definitely one of them. So Sophie came on board in October, and Sophie was definitely one of those amazing, fortuitous, I don't necessarily use the word fate, but very serendipitous things that happened. So Sophie's massively overqualified for the job. She'd just been made redundant and had a little bit of downtime before she was going on to her next adventure, and happened to be, as well as very wonderful at helping me pack all the orders and just free up my time a little bit more so I could kind of reassess where we were and start looking at things in a slightly more strategic, although still crazy way. She was also, and still is, an amazing designer, and she was responsible for our rebranding. So she came up with our new logo and worked with me on the kind of really bright, bold branding that we've got now, and she just totally got it and was really helpful. And she still works with us freelance, doing lots of our design work and stuff. So she was amazing, and she really helped me kind of get to grips with packing all of the orders and sorry, I'm now covered, absolutely covered in cat hair. So that's great. I've got my nice ironed, freshly washed and ironed dress on, and I'm covered in Tallulah fur, but never mind. Yeah, and that was a bit of a strange, well, not strange, but it was definitely a big leap, because as I said, I hadn't planned on taking on staff, and when you're not really taking a salary yourself, committing to pay someone else a salary is a big leap. I knew I couldn't turn around and say, well, sorry, you have to live on beans on toast this month because I can't afford to pay you. That's fine if it's your business and your choice, but you can't employ someone and do that. So I knew that would be a big leap. But that was another thing that kind of drove me. I wanted to make sure that I could pay her as well as pay all the bills and yeah, do everything else. I still continued, so at that point we were open 7 days a week in the shop. So Sophie would cover Sundays and a couple of days in the week, and then I would still work sort of 6 days, but I did start having, or trying to have, Sundays off as much as I could, but in reality it just meant that Sundays would be spent at home doing kind of admin and things like that, but at least I didn't need to be in the shop all the time. I also, towards the end of the year, started to build up a group of tutors. So we've got 7 or 8 now, teachers, because I, have never professed to be, you know, the most advanced sewing teacher. I tend to teach our beginners and our intermediate classes, but it's really important for me that all of our customers, our students that come in, not only have a really good time and, you know, really enjoy it and have fun, but that they learn lots. And for the more advanced classes, I knew I needed to get other people in to teach, and I've been really lucky that I've managed to find people that have the kind of similar style and ethos and want people to really enjoy it when they're learning. And also crafts, we've brought in a lot more, I always say we, it's really difficult to say I for some reason, because I mean back then it was pretty much I, but now we are definitely more of a we, so I don't feel sort of disingenuous saying it, but it just, yeah, it feels strange. So I kind of interviewed lots of different teachers and reached out to lots of people, and there were people that I've interviewed that haven't been quite right, that perhaps have had a different style, but luckily there have been some really amazing people, and if you look at our tutors page you'll see the kind of varying range of experience and classes that we can teach because of having those wonderful teachers. So that again started at the kind of latter part of last year, and we continue to add teachers every now and again, but I try and keep it quite small because I want, as I say, everyone to kind of have that same ethos and same focus, and also when you're dealing with more and more people's diaries and scheduling and things, that becomes a whole challenge in itself. But the other reason it was really important for me to get other teachers in was because I couldn't continue to teach every weekend, plus classes in the week, plus run a business, plus deal with, you know, packing orders on the days that Sophie wasn't in. So I knew from fairly early on that I would need to find some teachers, and again I would need to pay the teachers. So it's always a constant driver for me. How do I pay the bills, pay my staff, pay myself something, and run a business? And I don't know if that will ever change. I think if it got to a point where everything was really easy and I knew I could take my foot off the pedal, I think I would get a little bit bored. So yeah, the teachers were also a very welcome addition, and then we obviously went through Christmas and New Year, and then Sophie left at the end of January as planned to go on to her new adventures, and I took on Sandra, who is amazing, and you would have met her in one of our other videos. I'll link it down below, my week in the life of. And Sandra again looks after the shop, so the shop customers, cuts and packs all of your orders, and just generally looks after me, so make sure that I'm eating, make sure that I am not, or tries to make sure that I'm not working too hard, and she's just lovely. I absolutely love Sandra. And then Alice came on about 6-8 weeks ago, and again she's in the week in the life of vlog, but Alice looks after the kind of customer service email, so our info at email address, plus she helps me with more of the web stuff as well, so the online side of things, and deals with postage and shipping as well. So that's fairly new, and again that was another kind of leap where I had to make a decision on how much time I could devote to growing the business, i.e. promoting it, marketing, letting more people know that we're here, versus dealing with more and more and more admin. So those have kind of been the key events. I think highlights, there have been so many, and there continue to be so many. I really hope that that carries on. They're what get me through. There are days where you just feel like you are on top of the world. Obviously getting the website launched was one of them, because that was as I say, a massively challenging time getting everything done and live. When the first order came in, I hadn't actually announced that the website had gone live. We just had a holding page up saying, you know, coming soon and register your interest, and I hadn't sent the mailer out to everybody. I hadn't announced it on social media. My sister had said, let's just leave the website to bed in for a little while before we shout about it, and I obviously agreed, and then orders started coming through, which was surreal because I knew it meant people were obviously checking to see whether the website had gone live. And I remember I was out at lunch with some friends when that first order came in, and I was blown away. And I have actually since told, I won't say who it is, but I have since told the person who was our first order that she was our first order, and she continues to be a customer, and she does lots of amazing sewing on her own blog and things, and I will forever be grateful to her, so thank you. And I expected to just kind of sit there for 6 weeks and wait for an order to come in, but actually that first day the orders kept coming in, and I had at that point the emails used to come into my phone and ping every time an order came through, and I would run up the stairs and say to Paul, an order's come in, or another one's come in, and I'd text Susie and I'd text my sister. And it is so true what they say about when you order from a small business, they do a little happy dance, because I have done so many happy dances. I don't have the email alerts anymore because I get so many other emails about so many other things that it's not really practical, but I do every day without fail check the orders multiple times a day. So even though I'm not kind of packing them, every time I see that we've had new orders, I get that flip of joy and excitement in my tummy. And when we don't have orders, because that happens too, I get that oh no feeling of nervousness. So yeah, even though things have kind of changed in how we do things, I'm still constantly checking what's going on and seeing what's coming through and feeling that happiness or that nervousness. So yeah, that was a particular highlight, kind of just how it all started with the orders coming through. Highlights were obviously taking on you know, the team that we've got. I am so proud of the team that we've got. We're only small, but we do so much, and everybody, so both Sandra and Alice and Susie, who helps out a lot, and the teachers, everyone works so hard, and everyone is really passionate about making sewing and craft you know, approachable and fun, and giving all of our customers an amazing experience, and they're just such a joy to work with. So I'm really, really proud of that. What else has been a highlight? Oh, we were asked to go on to BBC Radio London, did an interview with them a few months ago. That was really surreal, sitting in the reception of BBC Broadcasting House with Zoe, one of our teachers. We just kept looking at each other and laughing manically, because that was really strange. So doing my first, well, I've done radio interviews before for previous jobs, but never in the studio. I've done it over the phone. So that was a really surreal moment, and some of the like when we've been featured in some of the magazines and things, that has been really, really cool. Every time we get feedback from our customers, so we get reviews or we get emails, and it never ceases to amaze me how lovely people are. We get emails fairly regularly from people who don't have to tell us that they're happy or that they like what we're doing, but they just take a moment to drop us an email and tell us that they really love the fabric, or that they've really, really enjoyed the class. And I have in the shop a makers gallery, so photos of lots of the things that people have sent us pictures of that they've made, and every time I look at that, that just makes me smile, because I look at things and I think wow. And actually there are times when I'm not teaching but someone else is teaching, so the studio is full, and I'll look and I'll just feel so amazing, because I think wow, they're all here and they're all crafting or sewing and doing something that they love because of satisfaction. And that is a really lovely feeling, and that is what continues to, you know, make me passionate about it and give me that drive and that focus to keep building the business. There have been lots of other highlights as well. I should probably have written them down. Yeah, I think, you know, there are highlights in terms of those ones that I've already talked about, the ones that give you that really fuzzy feeling in your tummy or in my tummy, and make me feel really proud. When we did our launch party at the shops, that was 2 weeks after we opened, that was one of the most surreal days of my life. And definite learning curve as well, because we did it 2 weeks afterwards, after the shop had opened, because I wanted Susie to be back from holiday, and I also wanted the shop to have had a couple of weeks to bed in before we kind of invited lots of people down. But put it on social media, put it out on our website, and to be honest, I didn't really expect that very many people would turn up. At this point, I was the only person that knew how to use the till. I was the only person who knew what anything was called or where anything was, because I'd been the only person in the shop, and stupidly I didn't think that many people would come, so I thought I would have time on the day to kind of train up Susie and my mum and Paul, who were with me, to help. Oh, wrong post. And oh, that really made me jump. What actually happened was, before we even opened, we had people queuing on the stairs outside to come in, and I had been up really late the night before because I wanted to make the shop, you know, look as beautiful as possible and have as much organised as possible. And I'd also, you know, my style left it until the night before to sew up my dress for the party, so I was particularly tired as well, and had obviously had a really manic first couple of weeks in the shop, so yeah, it was definitely overtired. And we had a queue of people, and for kind of 4 or 5 hours it was just constant. There was people were so lovely. People had travelled from all over the place. There were people that come from Bristol, from Portsmouth, from Kent. There was a queue for the cutting table pretty much all day, queues at the till. I got trapped in behind the till putting all of the transactions through because no one else knew how to use the till, because I hadn't trained anyone. So that was nice, because I did get to speak to people, but I didn't get to speak to people perhaps as much as I would have liked. But it was just, there were moments where me and Susie or me and Paul would just look at each other and sort of just really surreal, because we couldn't believe how many people had come out to support us, and it was so lovely. It was so lovely hearing from people how much they were pleased we were there, and how much they loved the fabrics and they loved the setup, and the fact that people took the time to travel and come and see us and be there for our kind of big opening day, when they didn't really know us. They didn't really, the business was still only a couple of months old. We were still really new, and there were so many people that came locally as well that didn't follow online and didn't really know about the website, but knew that the shop had opened and were really excited about having a shop nearby. And yeah, that was, in fact, that is probably one of my biggest highlights, because that's one of the moments when I remember thinking, oh my goodness, I can do this, I can make this work. There are people out there that love it. If you just remember that and bottle that and just keep that with you, you can do it. So yeah, that was another highlight. And there have been a few other things since like that. And then, like I say, the kind of everyday fuzzy feelings. And then there are other things, like where I set myself targets and I set myself goals of things I want to achieve, maybe financially or sales wise and things like that. When we hit those, that is also really amazing. So that being said, I don't think it would be fair and realistic of me to do a video like this and not talk about the fact that actually there are lots and lots of challenges as well, and there are lots of times where I don't have that fuzzy feeling in my tummy and actually I feel absolutely panicked or really, really scared. And like I said at the beginning of this video, that's quite hard to admit, because although I try and be quite transparent and quite real on social media, I also don't want to be on there moaning about things, because I don't want, I want people to feel good and excited and, just have an overall positive experience. But everyone has been so supportive, and everyone, be it customers or people that follow on social media or watch the vlogs, have all been so lovely that I feel like it's only fair to be really honest with you guys. And there have been times where it's been really scary. I mean, even right from the get-go, spending an awful lot of money on all of that stock was a very scary thing to do. Then taking on a lease, and we have a 5-year lease, so it's not a small commitment, but when you take on commercial premises, you know that it's not the same as renting a domestic property, so there are things you have to commit to. That was terrifying. The time, as I say, when I made the decision to take on Sophie, our first member of staff, so when I got to that point where I just felt so alone, that was really hard. That was a real low, because not only did I feel scared and worried and anxious, but I also just felt so tired. There was also a time in the run up to Christmas, I had this expectation that Christmas would kind of start in, you know, beginning of November, and everyone would be buying presents and we'd be really busy, and I expected November, December to be, you know, the busiest time that we'd had so far, and that didn't happen. So from launching the business in the April with the website and then opening the shop in August, we kind of steadily climbed sales wise, and it had got busier as more and more people knew about us. And then in early November it went from kind of doing that to just the bottom fell out of it. And I remember, I'm normally a pretty calm person. I try not to panic. There's a lot of times when I am panicking, but I keep it up here, and I try and do the whole swan thing where, you know, you look calm on the outside but underneath your legs are flapping around like mad. And I remember I came home one day early mid-November, sat on the sofa next to my husband and sobbed because I was so scared. Our sales had fallen through the floor. I'd just, you know, not long taken on a member of staff. Our rent was due just after Christmas. Obviously had bills to pay, I had my bills to pay, Christmas to get through, and there were a couple of weeks in the shop where the takings were so low it didn't pay for even having the shop open, and I was petrified, and I allowed myself a couple of days to be petrified, or not even a couple of days, maybe a day or something, to be petrified and get upset and panic. And then I just had to put my big girl pants on and come up with lots of things I could do to make sure that we could pay our rent, and we could pay, I could pay staff and make sure everything was okay, and you know, coming up with lots of new ideas, and you know, we added our gift vouchers and new classes and some new product lines and things. And actually December ended up being our best month of last year, so it came good in the end. But that was the first time, I mean, there'd been other times where I'd been scared, but that was the first time I felt absolutely terrified. So that was a particular challenge. I don't know if you can hear Tallulah's eating her food, sorry. Our living room's next to the kitchen and she only eats dry food, so she's munching away. So I feel like I have rambled on quite a lot already, and there is so much more that I could tell you, but we'd be here for days. So I thought I would just do a quick summary of, I suppose, I don't want to say top tips, because I really don't feel like I am, you know, there are a lot more people more qualified than me to give you tips on running your own business, but I suppose just some of the key learnings that I have had in the last year, and they're not specific to, you know, this business, so hopefully they'd be useful for people in any type of business, be it creative or otherwise. So my first one I've touched on quite a lot already, but it's that you can't do everything. You will try and do everything, but I got to a point where I let myself get almost quite ill in that first year. So I was working every hour available. I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't sleeping very well. I wasn't seeing my family and friends, and I was really, really run down. And there have been various times over the year when that would really, really kind of come out. I remember the day we shut the shop for Christmas. We shut for 2 weeks, and I remember that feeling of thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't realise, but I am literally clinging on by my fingertips here. I basically slept for 2 weeks during that Christmas and New Year break. But yeah, surrounding yourself with good people, because you can't do it all by yourself. And actually I get asked quite a lot more recently, what do I do now? Because obviously I've got more people, I've got more teachers, and there is almost every time, and I was listening to the Love to Sew podcast the other day, my hair is if I haven't said already, driving me mad. I was listening to the Love to Sew podcast the other day, and I think it was the one with Tilly. Her and Caroline were both saying about how each time you take on a new person, you think, I'm going to have so much more time, and I'm going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And it just doesn't seem to be true. Not because that person isn't doing everything they're supposed to do, but because you manage to fill your time with even more stuff. So even though I don't cut all the orders anymore, and I don't deal as much with the kind of customer service queries and things, I do kind of do everything else. So I deal with all of the accounts. So I have an accountant, but I deal with all of the bookkeeping, so reconciling all of our invoices, paying our suppliers, paying our teachers, paying staff. I obviously deal with the staff side of things and the tutoring, so scheduling, managing the diary, planning classes. I still teach. I've only recently stopped teaching pretty much every weekend, so I now try and make sure I'm only teaching 1 or 2 weekends in a month when I plan out the schedules, and then other teachers cover the other weekends. But I still teach, normally at least twice a week, and as I say, kind of 2 weekends a month. I still do a lot of the admin based stuff that comes with the business, and I deal with all of the marketing, all of the social media. So if you're looking at our Instagram posts or you're sending us messages, it's me that's replying, and our Facebook page as well, that's me. So sorry if you send a message sometimes and you don't get a reply immediately, that's why, because I'm trying to reply to lots of messages and deal with all the other stuff, and I try and be as reactive as possible on social media, and I spend a lot of time on there making sure I'm answering people's questions and responding to people's comments and posts and things. But that's a constant juggling act, because then you don't want to fall down the Instagram rabbit hole that we all know it's very easy to fall down. Yeah, and a big part of my role is now kind of growing the business, so planning new things, new products, new events, new ways to help people hear about us. So yeah, my days seem to be just as busy as they were. They're just busy in a different way. But if you surround yourself with good people, it will become easier. And sometimes making that leap is really hard, but I find that for me, I get to a point where I know I can't carry on as I am anymore, so I have to then make that leap to bring in somebody new to help with something, and that might be on a freelance basis, or it might be, you know, a member of staff. So the next thing that I would say is really, really important, and I have learned, and I struggle with this a lot, it's a constant kind of learning point for me, but it is you be you and they'll be them. So there are lots of people that I look at and I think, oh, either in this industry or outside, I follow lots of kind of you know, small businesses and independent business women, and I'm so inspired by them, and I'll often look at them and think, gosh, they're amazing, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and they're so quick, you know, they're moving so quickly, and they're doing, you know, they're doing so well, and they're doing, you know, that they're much better than you are, and you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And that is something that I am really making a conscious effort to not do anymore. So one, because I know that behind the scenes everybody is going through their own different challenges and different struggles. I've touched on some of them, but there are lots more that happen every day when you're running your own business. So I know that behind the scenes there are other things that go on. So there's no point judging someone on what you see on their social media posts and things, because that's not always accurate. Also, everyone goes at their own pace, so there'll be things that we'll be doing that are going on in the background. Like, we've got so many exciting things coming up that we're not talking about yet because we can't. And that might coincide with when we're not talking about stuff, other people are shouting about their things, but they'll have been planning their things for ages. So not comparing yourself, and also not worrying about, there's a lot of talk about competitors, and it definitely does seem in the last year, well, over the last couple of years, that there are more and more people in the sewing industry that are setting up businesses, and I think that is amazing. It shows that there are there is a market out there. And one of the things that I remind myself is that the customers that we do have are really loyal, and we have a lot of customers that come back again and again, and when they do shop with us, the feedback that we get is brilliant. But there are so many people out there that don't know that we exist, and that's obviously a big part of my job, is making sure that more and more people hear about us. But having competitors, if you like, don't necessarily like that word, coming popping up isn't a bad thing, because it just goes to show that more and more people are getting interested in sewing, and the more each of those businesses kind of spreads the word of sewing, the more it opens everything up for all of us. So I think from in one perspective, it's there's a fly. In one perspective, it is a really, really positive thing, and I remind myself of that often. That being said, it is also, I won't lie, again, I'm very honest, it is also sometimes quite challenging when you see something quite similar pop up and you think, oh, they're doing X, Y and Z, and that's what I was going to do, or that's what I'm already doing. But actually, I'm now at a point where I feel pretty comfortable with Sewisfaction as a business, and our style and our way of doing things, and the whole you be you and they'll be them is you could have the same products, you could have the same kind of look about your business, but everybody is an individual. So I have my own style, and other people have their styles, and what drives me isn't what will drive other people, and the kind of way I approach things won't be the same as the way other people approach things. So I make a concerted effort to just focus on me and my business and the future. And Tilly, again, I was listening to, I'm not sure if it was the same podcast but another podcast, and she used the phrase stay in your own lane, and that really resonated with me, because you just have to focus on what you're doing. If you keep zigzagging across and trying to overtake people or whatever, it's going to take you a lot longer to get there than if you just stay in your own lane. So that's a big learning curve. Okay, so I've got quite a long list of these, but I think I'm just going to finish with this last one, because I know this vlog is already going to be ridiculously long. And my last one is to be prepared for the fact that it will change your life. So you can make a decision when you start a business, as I did back in sort of May time last year, where I had to make a decision whether I wanted to make it more of a hobby and focus more on my day job, if you want to call it that, or whether I wanted to make it my career. And it's not a career, it's not a job, it is my life in a way. It's not my life in the sense that I have my family, I have my friends, and but it is part of who I am. It is ingrained in me. As I say, it is now one of the first things I think about when I wake up in the morning, one of the last things I think about before I go to bed. It has changed my whole dynamic. It's changed me as a person. It changes your life, and you have to be prepared for that. And there are times when that is really, really tough, because you can't see your friends as much as you want to, and you can't go to all of the things, and people have this perception that because you run your own business, surely you can do whatever you want whenever you want because you're in charge. So when you're saying, actually I can't come to X, Y and Z because I'm working, people are a bit sort of, a lot of people are really supportive, but often there's this perception that, well, why can't you? Because you can just say you're not going to be there, it's your business. It doesn't work like that. And family as well, I don't get as much time to see my family, and my family are so important to me. And that's something that I'm trying now really, really hard to build more time in for them, because they are hugely important to me, and I don't ever want to have a regret that I spent too much time on my business and not enough time with the people that I love. But yeah, you do have to be prepared that it will change your life, and sometimes that's for the good and sometimes it's not so good, but it is, yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far, I think, is how I can sum it up, and I am really excited. I'm really, really looking forward to what the next few years hold, and I really hope that I will be sitting in front of you in a couple of years' time doing another vlog about what's happened over you know, those last couple of years, and I hope that there'll be things in between where I'm telling you about new developments and new exciting things, and I hope that I can continue to surprise people as well, because that's something I don't want to follow a set path. I don't want to follow a set model of, you know, this is what you do when you own a sewing business. There are lots of other things I'm really, really interested in, lots of other things that I'm really passionate about, and that I'm hoping, you know, Sewsfaction will allow us to grow and develop those. So yeah, watch this space, guys. But yeah, I hope this has been interesting. It's been quite cathartic actually chatting away to you guys, so thank you for your support over the last year or so. Thank you for those of you that have been watching right from the very beginning. I hope it has been interesting for you to see what has happened and what has changed over the last 18 months or so. And those of you that are new, I hope you will come along and enjoy the ride. And if you like sewing or fabric or crafts, or even, you know, from watching a kind of small business grow, I hope that you will continue to follow us. So if you've liked the video, please, as always, give us a thumbs up. Leave me comments down below. I'm going to go through now and try and reply to comments from the last video. I don't always get time to do it straight away, but I do read all of them, so please do comment. And if you haven't subscribed already, then please do hit the subscribe button, and I will see you again next week. Take care, guys. Bye.